Hello everyone, this is Anish Verma and you are listening to the Empower Your Mind for Success podcast, a podcast for anyone who wants to build an entrepreneurial mindset. So I've been reading a book these days called as the Cybernetics, written by Maxwell Maltz, who was a doctor, a plastic surgeon, and how he, through treating his patients, got into the entire topic around psychology and subconscious mind and the conscious mind and other things. A very fascinating book. Actually, this book was published in 1960, and a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people, have used the cybernetics concepts to improve their performance in sports, in the business, at work, at relationships, you name it. Actually, I'm reading the new Cybernetics, which has been rewritten by Dan Kennedy, who was one of the disciples or mentees, I should say, of Dr. Maxwell Maltz. A fascinating book. And in this book, Dr. Maxwell talks about, how he thinks that, God has created humans. Basically, he has engineered us for success, and we have the way we work is like a servo motor, right? Servo mechanism is what he calls it, which basically says that you have to give the right command to your system, to your servo mechanism, so that it can go and execute on the command. And he gives examples of, the self-directing missiles that were created, in the 50s and 60s, where you gave it a target and the missile or the torpedo from the submarine would launch, and then it would find its way to the target, right? It would course correct itself. If it steered to left, the servo mechanism would bring it back towards the center or move it towards the right, and eventually, finally, through a zigzag line, it would reach its target. And he says, our minds or our bodies or our entire nervous system combined with our consciousness is a servo mechanism. It is. He calls it the auto success mechanism, right? Which is basically designed to achieve our goals, right? So if you give your consciousness and your nervous system a goal, it will go and find it. And if you don't have a goal, it can also go and find a goal for you. So he explains it very beautifully. And one of the things that he talks about, at least in the first chapter, was about that your servo mechanism, by constant training, forgets its past failures. And that made me, sit back a little bit, lean back into my chair. I was reading the book and ponder on this point a little bit, right? If you think about, before I go into the details of that, but think about this, right? Think that, think about your child, or think about when you were a newborn, and imagine that, when you were trying to figure out your motor skills, right? And you were trying to pick up a rattle from in front of you that your parents placed there, your hand would have reached out towards the rattle, but you would not been able to pick it up very correctly. You would have dropped it. You would not have reached it properly. You had to extend a little bit more. Whatever corrections you had to do, since your body did not know the program, the servo mechanism program to pick up the rattle and bring it close to you and shake it to make the sound, your body was learning and course correcting and making mistakes and failing and trying to then eventually figure it out. And as and when you continue to repeat that motion of picking up the rattle from wherever it was picked up, you could recognize that, hey, that's a rattle that makes a sound. You crawl up to it, or it's in front of you, pick it up and you shake it and you make that noise. So the more actions you take, the more you remind your servo mechanism through repetitions of picking up the rattle, your body, your nervous system and your brain learn, and they forget the past failures of not being able to pick up the rattle. Now, this is very fascinating to me, right? If you have heard my podcasts in the past, I've always mentioned that, your subconscious mind can never forget anything. The only way you can try to forget something is by diluting a particular pattern, or diluting a negative thought by adding more and more positive thought, or by replacing an old habit with a new habit by repetition. The more you repeat the new habit, new neurons will get connected, and it will slowly and slowly override the past, the habit that you're trying to get rid of, and eventually the new habit will form and stick, right? But you never really forget. Your subconscious mind is unlimited capacity, can never forget. But for all practical purposes, if you're behaving in the new programmed way that you want to, then your body has kind of forgotten, or the signal is that the connectivity between those old neurons is so weak that you don't make those past mistakes. And that is what he means by forgetting your past failures. And it was very interesting to me while I was reading it, and I was trying to go back into my past as a child when I was growing up in India. And the first thought that came to my mind is, what have I forgotten in terms of my failures, right? And I immediately thought about how I was figuring out to learn to ride a bike, ride a bicycle, I mean. And now I'm talking about in the 1980s, early 1980s, okay? And in those days, my dad had a bicycle at home as one of the vehicles, and it was an adult bicycle, right? So we didn't have the kids' bicycles that I have been able to buy for my kids these days, right? The smaller ones that they sit on, their legs can reach the ground. Already you can adjust the seat height, or you could buy the next size bicycle for them as they grow taller. In those days, we didn't have that. It was directly an adult bicycle, and it was the bicycle which had the bar that went from under the seat to the handle frame, right? So it was a male bike, right? Not a female one where you don't have the bar in between. So now, when you are a child and your head barely reaches the seat of this bicycle, how do you learn how to ride that bicycle? So there was a very interesting way that we all learned how to ride a bicycle. Most of the kids in those days learned how to ride a bicycle on an adult bike. And the way we did it was, when we put one of the foots on one of the pedals, which was more closer to the ground, and we kind of, with the other leg, we kind of accelerated the bicycle to get into momentum. And when it got into enough momentum, and if we could balance the bicycle, we would then take the next leg, the other leg that we were trying to push on the ground to catch the momentum, we would then take that leg and cross it in between the frame. So if we could cross the leg in between the frame and put it on the other pedal and then start riding it. So if you can imagine, we are not sitting on the seat. We are actually kind of, it's basically like riding a horse, but you're not sitting on the horse. You're kind of, balancing yourself on the horse, but not your feet are not touching the ground, right? So you're on the side of the horse. The same thing we did with those bicycles in India, and we used to call it the scissor way to drive the bike. It was called the scissor method, right? Where you would not crisscross, but you would cross your leg. One leg would be on this side of the frame, and the other leg would go in between on the other side of the bicycle frame, right? So it was very interesting that I remembered that. I'd completely forgotten of how we learned the scissor method to ride those bikes. And as we grew taller and taller and taller, then that is when we started sitting on the bike. And we used to fall a lot because you're not tall enough to balance the bicycle. So we used to fall off, either on our face on one side, or we would fall back on our heads on the other side. Because remember, we are not centrally balancing the bike. We are kind of balancing the bike with our weight on one side of the bike, and the bike being on the right hand side of our body, depending upon how you're riding it, whether you're left-handed or right-handed. If I can find some videos on this or some pictures, I'll definitely post it on my website that the listeners can go and look at, or maybe you can Google it as well, the scissor method of riding bicycles in India. And it was very fascinating. And then, eventually when we grew taller and we ride the bicycle, we forgot or we chose not to ride the bike that way because we didn't have to. It was kind of silly. But then we started riding the bikes properly, and we forgot of how we rode the bikes. I don't know if I could even replicate riding the bicycle that way, because now I'm tall enough. I will have to scooch down and try to ride the bike that way. It will be very, very challenging, right? But we forgot. My servo mechanism forgot how to ride the bicycle using the scissor method. And then we learned how to ride the bike the way it was meant to be. But that is what Dr. Maxwell Maltz was talking about in this book. You forget your past failures, but the only way to forget your past failures is to keep on working on that action or new set of actions and course correcting it till you achieve success. So if you can do it for picking up a rattle or riding a bicycle, or picking up a pencil in the dark, right? Let's say it's dark and your pencil is on the dining table or your study table, and you walk towards the table, it's dark, you have not switched on the lights, and your hand is kind of trying to search, move left, right to find where the pencil is. You touch something, but that's kind of a that's a staple, so you kind of you close your eyes and you're trying to find where the pencil is, and when finally you touch it and you feel that's a pencil, you pick it up. So now your mind knows the image of a pencil, and when you touch it and feel it, it's a pencil, right? So that's what you do, your servo mechanism does in the dark to find out where the pencil is. The same thing, right? But you never give up as a child to figure out how to crawl, walk, run. You never give up on how to pick up a Cheerio and put it in your mouth, and you struggle, right? I mean, if you see the newborn babies, when they're trying to put something in their mouth, sometimes the servo mechanism is not, the motor skills are not set right. They poke their eye, they put it in their nose. It doesn't always go right in the mouth, but eventually you learn to figure it out. So our bodies, the humans have been engineered for success as long as we don't give up. And in a couple of my previous podcasts, I've spoken about this, right? Ruben Gonzalez, in his book Fight for Your Dream, mentioned that there are Harvard studies done that talk about people's success rate goes up to 95%. 95% as long as they don't give up. So now the question is, if we never gave up when we were children on learning something, we laughed off on our failures. If we fell down while riding a bike and we hurt ourselves, we laughed, we cried maybe a little bit, we laughed it off. Next day again, we were trying to ride the bike. We never gave up on the concept or the goal of riding a bike. Then how come when we have become adults, we give up so easily on something that we are trying to achieve? Some people put in a lot of effort and they can't get through, but a lot of people forget or give up on a new thing that they're trying to do, right? For me, it's I have failed multiple times in learning the guitar, and I've still not learned guitar. I've tried learning the guitar, I believe, in 4 different instances during my lifetime, and I don't mean learning it myself. I mean taking classes and having music teachers come to my home to teach me, or I going to their studios to learn. But I never was able to learn the guitar. But it's not because I couldn't, it's because I was not willing to put in the effort. I was not willing to go through the pain of getting calluses on my fingers and learning the guitar, right? I never put in the effort. So now in my mid-40s, if I want to go and learn the guitar, I know I can do it. Now the question is, do I choose to have that as a goal and execute on all the actions to now become a guitarist, right? We all have these events in our past, but the point is, as we grow older, as we become adults, we are more aware for some reason that a lot of other people are looking at us and laughing at us if we don't succeed. So we, as a defense mechanism, don't even try to do something. We try to fit in. We try to adhere to the norm of doing which is more popular, like doing a job, right? That's why more than 90% people in this world work for someone in a job capacity, and very few people have their own businesses, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong in it, guys. If you are content with where you are, that's absolutely fine. But if you are willing to do more, if you have an itch to do something more than what you're doing today. If you believe you value personal growth over money, and you believe you want to provide value to others, and you have a message to share with others, and that means you need to take up a business and learn how to do it, then you should do it. You should not be worried about, we should not be worried about, people like you and me should not be worried about the temporary failures. We should not be worried about people laughing at us. After all, everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything that has not been achieved before is laughed at in the beginning. When Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute barrier for running a mile, everybody laughed that it could never ever be done. A human is not designed to run a mile within 4 minutes. Doctors came up with theories of how it is impossible. But when Roger Bannister did it for the first time, of running a mile within 4 minutes, then people knew that, oh, it can be done. It is not a laughing matter at all anymore. Now, I can do it too. If he has done it, maybe others can try it and they can do it too. So that is why, we really need to think back to why we did not give up when we were children. What was it that kept us going when we were children to not give up on the goal of riding a bike or learning a painting or learning a sport or learning a musical instrument? Whatever that was, go back in your childhood and you will find the joy of and the feeling of joy that you guys experienced, that we all experienced when we were little, of achieving something, and why we were not ashamed of failures, why we were okay with people laughing at us, or why maybe we didn't even bother about what other people would say about you. So why now as adults we are more worried about it? Something to think about, guys. When Dr. Maxwell says that our bodies are engineered for success, what I equate that to is, what I always remind you guys about is that you have unlimited potential. Don't let anybody get in the way for you to leveraging your potential to achieve your dreams and goals. Do not let anyone's opinion, whether it's your spouse, your close friend, your parents, your siblings, don't let anyone's opinion come in the way of you achieving your goals. You go for it. There are a lot of people like you and me who are out there willing to help each other. I hope this helps. I hope you step back and think a little bit about this. And if you want to pick up the book, the Cybernetics, go ahead and do it. It's an amazing book. But remember, guys, we all have unlimited potential. We need to own it. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.